Is the Sony 90mm f2.8 Macro G OSS still valuable in 2026 for portrait photography? It's 2026. The Sony 90mm f2.8 Macro G lens OSS was released back in 2015. This makes this lens over a decade old. In camera years, that's a long time. So the question is simple. Is the Sony 90mm still viable for portrait photography in 2026, especially when paired with a modern body like the Sony A1 or the Sony A1 Mark II? Today I'm photographing a mixed race Filipino model in my home studio. We're focusing on beauty portraits, clean light, controlled environment, high resolution captures, Sony A1 Godox lighting, and the Sony 90mm macro lens. Let's break it down from a professional standpoint. Image quality, autofocus performance, compatibility with modern Sony bodies, pros and cons, and current cost. All right, let's cut to the basics. The Sony FE 90mm is a full-frame E-mount lens. It offers true one-to-one macro capability. It features optical stabilization. It weighs approximately 602 grams or about 1.3 pounds. As of this year, 2026, the retail price in the United States is approximately $1,098 new. On the used end, it generally sells from around $700 to $850 depending on condition. For a G series lens with macro capability, this level of optical performance, the price point is still competitive. Let's talk about what matters most, image quality. The lens is critically sharp. Even at 2.8, it delivers exceptional center sharpness and a very strong edge-to-edge performance. On a 50 megapixel sensor like the Sony A1, it resolves detail without hesitation. Skin texture, eyelashes, fine hair detail, all rendered with precision. For beauty work, that level of sharpness is both a strength and a liability. The strengths, you get maximum detail. Perfect for commercial beauty skincare campaigns and high resolution retouching workflows. The liabilities, it shows everything. If your lighting is not controlled, if your model's skin prep is not handled properly, this lens will not hide it. Color rendering is neutral and consistent. Skin tones, especially on melanated rich and mixed skins, come through clean and accurate under controlled Godox lighting. I see no unusual color shifts or contrast issues. The bokeh is smooth. Although not as creamy as some newer GM lenses, the transition from focus to autofocus is gradual and pleasing. For beauty portraits at f8 or f11 with strobes, the lens performs exceptionally well. For shallow depth of field, at f2.8, it still delivers a strong and professional look. Now let's address the elephant in the room. This is a 2015 lens on a 2026 flagship body. The Sony A1 offers advanced real-time eye autofocus, subject recognition, and extremely fast readout speeds. The question is, can a 90mm keep up? In studio conditions, the answer is a resounding yes. However, this is not a sports lens. The autofocus is not as fast as the newer linear motor GM lenses. The focus motor is slightly slower, particularly when shifting from close focus macro distances to standard portrait distances. In studio settings, this is rarely an issue. For fast-paced events or moving subjects, you may notice the difference. The key point is this: the lens fully supports modern Sony autofocus systems. It communicates properly with the A1. You still get eye autofocus, tracking, and accurate focus performances. It does not feel obsolete. The 90mm includes optical steady shot. On a body like the Sony A1, which already has its own body image stabilization, this system works well together. For handheld portrait work, this combination gives you added stability. In studio, shooting with strobes, stabilization is less critical. But for hybrid shooters and natural light portrait photographers, this is still valuable. Let's break down the advantages clearly. First, you get exceptional sharpness. Even by 2026 standards, it holds up against newer lenses. Second, you get a dual purpose capability. You get high-end portrait lens and a true one-to-one macro lens in one package. That adds versatility for product detailed shots, jewelry, and beauty close-ups. Third, strong build quality. This lens is weather sealed and solid. It feels professional. Fourth, internal focusing. This lens does not extend during focusing, which keeps balance consistent. Fifth, the price stability. At around $1,098 new, it remains competitively priced for what it offers. Now for the disadvantages. First is the autofocus speed. It is not class leading in 2026. It is accurate, but it's not the fastest in the Sony lineup. Second, maximum aperture. It is only 2.8. For photographers who want ultra shallow depth of field, extreme background separation, lenses like the 85 f1.4 GM Mark II will produce more dramatic look than this lens. Third, it can be too sharp for some portrait styles. If your aesthetic leans toward soft, dreamy, or vintage rendering, this lens will require more work in post. Fourth, size and weight. It's over 600 grams. It is not the lightest option for long handheld sessions. In this session with our Filipina model, I'm using a classic beauty setup: key light, a soft modifier, fill control, subtle hair light. Shoot at f8 for maximum facial sharpness. The files coming out of Sony A1 paired with a 90mm are clean, detailed, and extremely workable in post. Skin tones are consistent, eye detail is crisp, there is no visible chromatic aberration, and high contrast edges around the hair or highlights. For commercial beauty, editorial work, and controlled portrait session, this lens remains highly valuable. So, is the Sony 90mm f2.8 Macro G OSS still valuable in 2026 for portrait photography? Yes, it absolutely is. It may not be the newest lens. It may not have the market buzz of the latest G Master releases, but optically, it holds its ground. On a modern body like the Sony A1, it performs reliably. If you're a portrait photographer who also values macro capability, this lens still makes strong business sense. If you need extreme subject separation or the fastest autofocus possible, you may look forward to a newer G Master option. But if your priority is sharpness, versatility, and consistent professional results, the Sony 90mm remains solid investment in 2026. In photography, tools matter, but results matter more. The Sony 90mm proves that a well-designed lens can stay relevant for over a decade. If you're building a portrait kit today, this lens still deserves serious consideration.